Hello, if you are just joining us, today we are doing our ink drawing technique chart. So this is what it will look like in the end. Our goal is to explore a variety of mark making with a fine point Sharpie or an ultra fine point Sharpie. These two can be found in the Sharpie drawer along the side of my classroom labeled. You do need each size, so ultra fine means it has this small point felt tip there, and fine point is our typical size Sharpie there, okay? So you need one of each. We also have a sharpened pencil and a grid ruler to draw out our chart first, and then we will go in with ink. So we have students have opened up their sketchbook to a new page. Be aware that it will bleed through the backside because you guys have drawing paper as pages. So make sure there are no notes on the backside or anything there. But we are going to start with drawing in pencil. With our grid ruler, we're going to find the one and make sure it's facing forward and on the left side. So forward and top left, one is here. And we are going to start out with an 8" by 8" square. Now, if your page in your sketchbook is not big enough for an 8" by 8" square, I want you to go to the white tag board drawer and grab a piece of tag board like I have and I'm using myself, okay? So if your sketchbook's not big enough for an 8" by 8" square, again, grab a piece of tag board. With that grid ruler, you are going to find that one again, make sure it's facing forward and is on the left. You are going to place that corner of your ruler within the square you just drew so that you can mark the top line. We are going to mark above the 2, the 4, and the 6 on the top line. Sliding my ruler down to the bottom line, I'm going to mark again above the 2, the 4, and the 6. Once you have that marked down with dashes, you may use your grid ruler and connect those dashes vertically to slice this square into 4 vertical sections. Turning your sketchbook or page sideways, we are going to do the same thing from left to right. Using your ruler, we are going to find the 1. Make sure this edge is on the left, placing the corner of your ruler within the square so that you can mark on this line above the 2, the 4, and the 6. Sliding to the other side, we are going to mark above the 2, the 4, and the 6. So that you can connect those dashes and divide your square into further sections. At this point, we should have a 4 by 4 square grid, creating 16 total sections. But wait, there's more. We are going to divide the top row even into smaller sections. So with your ruler, you are going to find again that 1, make sure it's facing forward and on the left side. And we are going to actually use this middle line of your ruler. And this middle line of your ruler that goes all the way down the length, we are going to place that right here, okay? That gives us the opportunity to slice the top row 4 squares horizontally in half, because we did 1 inch from the bottom or 1 inch from the top, you choose. So this is the line I just placed. If you want to eyeball it too, that's okay. But that grid ruler is super helpful to align. With your grid ruler, we're going to find it again. We're going to have that 1 facing forward on the left side. This time, though, we're going to turn our ruler vertically. And we are going to, and you can eyeball it, or you can use this section of your ruler here and place that in the top square. So our goal is to slice and create almost like these plus signs within each one of these top row squares. Again, if you don't want to use the grid ruler, just eyeball it and slice it right down the middle for each section. It'll work just fine. Now we have a few more lines to place. We want to do 2 more vertical lines. One of these lines is going to be this line here. So we're just going to start at the far left edge, and you're going to draw a little line going up and down just for our title to squeeze in each technique title. This is the line we just placed. I just placed it right here. And then we're going to do that also to the right of our center long line. We're going to do it just in the top row, a little line right there. Okay, so I just placed this line and I placed this line. Make sure you have that in the correct location, because what's going to happen for this top row, you guys are going to explore 4 different techniques. The first technique is going to be hatching, and we're going to use these 4 sections for hatching. The second section will be cross hatching, and we're going to use these 4 sections for creating a value scale with that technique. Then we're going to do stippling, which is this technique for these 4. And then we're going to do scribbling as these 4 here. Okay, so one last line we're going to put is this horizontal line in the 3rd row, these 2 boxes here. So I'm just going to use my ruler. I can use this middle line to line it up if I want, or I can eyeball it. And I'm just going to slice from the center line going out to the left. There we go. And we did the hardest part today. Now that we have our chart drawn out in pencil, you guys are going to next use the fine point Sharpie, the thicker Sharpie, okay? And what I want you to do is go ahead and put that cap on the other end of the Sharpie. You are going to use your ruler, and you are going to go over the lines we just did. So this might take a few minutes, but I'm going to start out with the outline of my technique chart, and I'm going to do it. I like to spin my paper because I consistently like to pull towards me for more control. but you guys don't have to spin like me. You can just trace however you need to. And I'm going to go over the sections we divided next. Now if you want to, if you have any pencil peeking out, once that marker is dry, you can always take an eraser and clean up any pencil if you would like. So sometimes people like starting a drawing in pencil and then doing ink over top, or you can always just dive right in with ink right away. That's up to you. But for our exercises that we're going to do today, for the most part, we're going to do most of it freehand with ink, and then occasionally some pencil beforehand. We are going to be done using our fine point Sharpie, the thicker Sharpie. So I'm going to put that aside. And we are going to now use the ultra fine point Sharpie. So the first thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to label different techniques that we are doing in some of these sections. From there, we will then start our technique chart. With your ultra fine point Sharpie, we are going to turn our page sideways. I'll show you what we're doing. But we are going to label in each one of these skinny rectangles 4 different techniques. Now we're going to start out, I know it's kind of confusing, but we'll read from this way. We're going to start out actually in the far right skinny rectangle. And we are going to, with an ultra fine point Sharpie, write down the word hatching. 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 Hatching is a term used in ink drawing or drawing overall of lines that are parallel to each other but differently spaced apart, creating a range of value. Showing more white of the paper here makes it lighter in value. Covering more of the paper here makes it darker in value, because you cannot use a blending stump with an ink pen. So you have to shade and do it with your mark making. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to label the technique that's similar but also different, called cross hatching. So I'm going to abbreviate hatching though, because I can't fit it in there. And I'm going to write down cross hatch. So CROSS space HATCH. Yeah, like you see right there. In these really skinny rectangles here, we're going to label the techniques we'll be doing in these other sections. So I'm going to start out with, on the right, we're going to write down the word stippling. 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 And then in this section here, we're going to be doing scribbling. So I'm going to write small SCRIBBLING. Scribbling. So you should have hatching, cross hatching or cross hatch, stippling, and scribbling. So when we turn it upright, we have it looking like that, okay? Now we are going to try out 1, 2, 3, 4 mark making techniques, but then these 1, 2, 3, 4 squares in the second row are going to be us testing out each technique by drawing a sphere. So that means this first box, I'm going to label what we wrote down first, which is hatching. This second box in the second row, I'm going to write down cross hatching. In the third box in the second row, I'm going to label it stippling. And in our final box in the second row, I'm going to write down scribbling. Now, as we are labeling, we're going to continue on and do this third row as well. And then we'll be able to start our mark making techniques in the top section. So, going to our third row, this technique is going to take up this whole square, but different ways. And this is the same too. So I'm going to write down just right here, edges, E-D-G-E-S, edges. In this section here, I'm going to write white lines. W-H-I-T-E, lines, white. In this third box, in our third row, I'm going to now write down quality of line. And in our final box, I'm going to write down wash, W-A-S-H. Now this entire fourth row, we will be doing another day with a calligraphy pen. So one of those nib dip pens, this is what we're doing here. But today, I think what we have time for is possibly doing this top row here and maybe get to a few sphere exercises in the second row. So I'm going to zoom up and we are going to begin. Starting out with hatching. This is the first technique that we are doing. Hatching, again, is creating a value scale by spacing out different distances between lines going in all the same direction. So, to represent that technique, I'm going to use my ultra fine point Sharpie, and I like to turn my sketchbook or page slightly at an angle for a consistent wrist movement. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 diagonal lines in this first section here. If they're not perfectly straight, that's okay. In the second box, I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 diagonal lines. But this time, I'm going to now place lines in between the lines I just previously placed diagonal. So I'm now doing in between lines going in the same direction like you see there. So I have twice as many lines now. In the third box for hatching, I'm going to begin with 1, 2, 3, 4 diagonal lines. Doing the same thing I did here, I'm going to place lines in between those 4 lines, going in the same direction. But in this box, we're going to now add more lines in between those lines. Give yourself some grace if you feel like your lines are a little shaky as you're getting used to this. And in our fourth box for hatching, we're going to start out the same way. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in between there. And then we're going to do even more lines. And actually, honestly, once you get to the darker shading for hatching, you don't have to count them or anything. You can just go in the same direction. Let's loosen up a little bit. There we go. And we're just going to go cover up some of the more of the white of the paper. Going in the same direction though. And you can see that is a form of shading with just hatching. How are we doing so far? Okay. Let's move on to cross hatching. So I'm going to do the same thing to begin this technique. I'm going to start out with diagonal lines, And I'm tilting my page again for that nice, comfortable wrist movement. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My hands are so dry from clay last hour. Yikes. Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to do the same technique. Going diagonal. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. But this time, in this section, I'm going to turn my sketchbook diagonally this way for that nice wrist movement. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 lines going in that direction. So cross-hatching is when you have intersecting lines for shading purposes. Moving on to our next box, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 in one direction. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the other direction, just like what we did. But this time I'm going to go in between one direction. I'm going to put some lines there. But don't forget, I have to turn back the other direction and put lines in between those ones. In the third box for cross-hatching, we're going to do the same thing we just did. One direction. The other direction. And then placing lines in between those. This way. And this way. But then to make it a darker value, we have to cover up more white of the paper. So I'm going to go even tighter with my lines. No pressure if you're a little wiggly. And then I have to go in the other direction too, adding tighter lines in there. So if you kind of squint your eyes, you start seeing highlighted area or like lighter values getting a little darker here. In this last cross-hatching box, we're not going to count where the lines or anything. We're just going to go hatching like we did above, right here, in one direction. And spinning our paper the other direction, you're going to intersect and this is a form of shading with ink. Good, guys. All right, we have time for today. Stippling and scribbling. Starting out with stippling in this top row, we are going to practice these tiny little dots. When they're more spread apart, again, it reveals more white of the paper. When they're closer and there are many of those little dots, you get a little darker value. So this takes some patience for sure because it takes a little longer, but we're going to just use the tip of our ultrafine Sharpie and we're going to, you want to kind of have control of your dots so they're not little tadpoles. If you have a little bit of a tremor or shaky hand, that's okay. Just try your best, no pressure. But I did my first box a few dots. Now I'm doing more dots in my second box to cover up more white spaces in the paper. Approximately that many. Maybe a few extra. And then in the third box, this is where it starts taking a little bit more time because you want tighter dots together. Please don't push on the tips too hard. You want to just touch them to the paper. If you do jam the tip of this ultra fine point Sharpie in, it will damage it and it will not be usable. So don't, and I don't want to hear like tapping. That is just like proving that you are damaging it. So have control, just tap it lightly to the paper and let that absorb. All right, and then the final box is going to take you a little bit more time. I'm going to start in the corner with really, really tight speckling and dotting and work my way across. So some of these little dots might even touch each other. This is a great method for creating a sense of texture in your ink drawing. Some people do entire ink drawings using just stippling, which takes, again, so much patience and control. But I've heard some artists feel like they are really relaxed or kind of find a sense of balance or centering when they have this repetitive technique. It does lead to a little bit of hand cramping, so shake it off if you need to. Students that just came in late, you guys can watch this video that's being recorded right now and make up this section of our technique chart tomorrow. Or if you want to check out a ruler and Sharpies to do this tonight, you may do that. It will be posted. All right, you guys get the idea. Now, the last section of this technique area we are going to explore is scribbling. Scribbling is my favorite because you can really be expressive with it. So we're going to start in this little box here if you are ready. And I like to have sound effects. So I like to express my feelings when I do this and go, ah, and do one quick scribble. That's going to show very, like a lot of the way of the paper just representing scribble, okay? In the next box, you're going to express even more emotions and scribble, not pressing your tip to grinding into the table, but you're just going to like drag across and do a few more scribbles. Oh my goodness, all the feelings that teenagers have. And then in the third box, you're going to scribble even more, but a little bit tighter. And go all the way around. Covering up more white of the paper. And then our final box, again, don't smush the tip of the when you're doing this, but you're going to have really tight scribbles. Making a darker value. And if you feel like you're gripping, death gripping your pen, loosen up a little bit. And now we see we have a gradient there. Okay, so I'm gonna put the top on my ultrafine Sharpie for just a moment as we shift into using these 4 techniques. So we have hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and scribbling. I'm gonna go back to my pencil and do just a little sketch of a sphere in each one of these. So I'm gonna do it about the size of a dime. Guesstimate how much or what that size is. I'm gonna do a circle in the hatching section, adding a little tail to that circle, representing one edge of the cast shadow in one direction. And then I'm gonna create the rest of the cast shadow, kind of looping around there to make that shape. We're gonna do this in each one of these sections with pencil first. Hopefully your pencil doesn't break like mine just did. Adding a little tail to that circle. Little curved line over here connecting underneath to represent a cast shadow. Now I like using a simple sphere and within these exercises. You guys are going to be masters by the end of these exercises in drawing spheres, because it helps you have an understanding of highlights and shadows and how to manipulate materials to create that effect. Good. We are going to do the first section, hatching first. Notice how in this example, we started out with, and I'll do it with you, but we're going to do the outline first. I'll talk about line weight, and then we'll do hatching horizontally to create that illusion that is a rounded form. So in this hatching section, I'm going to use my ultrafine Sharpie again, the skinny one, and I'm going to first outline the outer edge of the sphere. Now, before you do that, I want you guys to know anything that's in the highlighted area is going to be a thin, delicate line, versus in the shadow area, you're going to have a bold, thicker, heavier line. So I'm going to start out with my thin Sharpie and just barely drag it across the top where the highlight is. But as I'm getting down where I know the shadow will be on the sphere, I'm going to thicken that line weight. Make it kind of chunky. A lot of ink drawing is being aware of your line weight, how heavy it is, how thin it is, and that can add a lot of effect too. Once you have that, you're ready to do hatching, and we're going to practice this first in the cast shadow, that shadow that is beneath the sphere. So we're going to go ahead and do some horizontal lines. Because it's a dark shadow, we have them pretty close together. Then I'm going to do shading on the sphere. I want you guys to watch this first. This example, you see, we're going to keep the white of the paper representing the highlight on the sphere. So I'm going to do a little line here, a little longer line here, a little longer, but they're spread out right now as I get initial sketching on there. But then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just kind of naturally create the shadow that is on the sphere, okay? So you can see how it's getting tighter. Now, notice that I'm leaving a little bit of a highlight underneath here. This tiny highlight is called reflective light. So this is on every sphere that you are ever going to draw, because this is the light that shines and kind of reflects off this area up towards the sphere. So just be aware of that part of a sphere whenever you're doing shading. That also applies to other objects. But I'm gonna have some really dark, oops, getting crazy, going outside the lines. Really dark band going across, but doing that shading in the same direction to create hatching. We're going to do the same thing, a similar approach in cross hatching. So I'm going to start out with the outline, thin line up top, bold, heavier, thick line on the bottom for that contour or outline. But this time we're going to do cross hatching in the shading. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go diagonal in the cast shadow first, one direction. I like turning my page for good consistent wrist movement, going in the other direction. Now, hatching in the sphere part, you want to be aware that this is a rounded form. So your hatching is going to be curved like the curving of the sphere. And then you're going to curve it in the other direction, but still hatch in that technique. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do some loose lines, kind of curving from each direction going inwards. And then I'm going to go up and down, going in each direction. So they're good parentheses kind of on each side, because it's a rounded form. And then I can just start intersecting some of my line work as I get into those darker shaded areas. It does not have to be perfectly perpendicular intersected lines. You can just angle and hatch in different directions. But the more spread out they are, the lighter the value is. And that's one method there. Now, we have about 5 minutes left of class. So I think we are going to stop here so we have enough time to get caught up if you need to. And tomorrow will be part 2 of this video and of this demo. So tomorrow we will finish stippling, scribbling. We will then do edges and white lines with Sharpie for these 3 boxes. We will then do a wash, and we'll finish up class with calligraphy tomorrow. So we have a lot we want to accomplish tomorrow, but I know we can do it. This is, again, part 1 of this demo. Thank you for watching, those that are watching the video. So go ahead and put your rulers and everything back in where they belong. But thank you again.